What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi Fruit Loop. What you know?
We had a good live last night.
We had a great live last night. It was so much fun.
It was. It was fun.
I mean, I don't want to boast or anything, but I do want to remind everybody that I won. So we'll just leave it there.
Look, everybody's gonna agree with me. You had more chances at the points.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, look, we just
Uh-huh.
need we just need to settle this in a rematch. Just
Oh yeah.
saying. We just gonna
Yeah.
leave it there, just saying. Sore loser. so so anyways, we want to give a big thank you to our sponsor, Too Cool T-shirt Quilts. She is giving the winner, Dawn, a free t-shirt pillow. So big shout out to Andrea, who was watching last night. If you didn't win and you still are interested, go to twocooltshirtquilts.com/pretty lies and alibis. Check her out. She will hook you up with your t-shirts you're done with. So we are going to jump. What can she do, Fruit Loop? I'm sorry.
They can take your t-shirts and make them into a quilt that is too cool.
Yes. So I just slid into this chair. I've been at the hospital, totally fell asleep for an hour with my aunt. She was in the bed, I was in the recliner, and then I'm literally getting ready to leave, and you're like, I'm ready, I'm on. And I'm like, oops, sorry. So we're running behind. And so we're going to jump right in. We left off halfway through them questioning Chandler's girlfriend, Kat. And she had dated him for a couple of years before all this started. So the last thing we left off talking about was him telling her, don't rush over. And he was just worried about having dinner and sex. So,
Yeah, it was kind of we're at the point where she's just giving a timeline of things he
right.
said and did. Yeah.
Yep. So moving on, he had told her she couldn't spend the night. And she said the message was odd about her coming over and then leaving and then coming right back over in the morning. And she texts him, why leave and come back if I'm just going to stay? He says, so I can get some chores done. At 12:14, I'm trying to see, this is July 2nd. So this is the day after he's murdered his parents. At 12:14 p.m., Chandler texts, we are set for this. We just need ice. And
I don't
what?
mean to interrupt you, but
No.
his chores are a little bit different than what my chores were growing up.
For real. My chores was never cleaning up, after
A
I killed
murder
my parents.
scene, no.
Oh my goodness, it's
No.
crazy. But you think about it, he must have done a pretty good job on the surface of cleaning because cops were in and out of there for a couple of days before he was arrested, and they didn't see anything that really stuck out to him.
But too, I think they were thinking missing person and they
Right.
were doing some remodeling. So
Yeah.
if things kind of looked
I
weird.
can't wait for the luminol because it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at 12:15, he texts, he tells her to get ice and hydrogen peroxide. I just stepped on glass. She texts about bringing some other items and says she'll bring all the stuff he's asked for. And she says she'll also bring Jesus. Little did she know. Chandler replies, yes, please. And then he texts, but for real, if your mom has an extra bottle, that would be great. And a Swiffer wet jet. So she responds, they have both. And he says, thanks. He texts a little while later and says, I do kind of need the Swiffer and peroxide stuff. She brought the peroxide and the wet jet from her mom. She confirmed, and they show a picture of her mom's house with a picture of that wet jet propped up, and police took it. That was a police photograph where they went and got the wet jet from her mom
I
after
wonder if
all
he
this.
put peroxide in the wet jet.
That's a really good question.
I'm wondering if that's how he tried to clean it up.
Yeah, he in his police interview, he talks about smearing all this blood around from this tiny little toe wound. Seriously. But when she gets to Chandler's house, she noticed that the house had a smoky smell. And Chandler said he was playing catch with a dog and the glass shattered in the fireplace. So he says that's how the whole house smelled smoky because he broke a pane on the fireplace. So he said.
That glass is built to withstand a lot of temperature.
Oh yeah, he says that essentially a tennis ball hit it and broke it.
I know I was reading something on this, and it talked about the temperature that a body burns because of the oils and stuff that are in the skin and stuff, that it burns at a higher temperature.
Yeah, that's like when you cremate, it can take hours and hours with a dedicated heat source. I mean, it's
Yeah.
thousands of degrees constantly. So she spent the night and they slept on the couches that were pushed together by the fireplace. And he said the reason they slept there is um, so they could play with the dogs and watch the bigger TV. So she got up and left at 6:55 a.m. So they text throughout that next day, and she texts him asking if he wanted a breakfast burrito when he came over later. And at 7:46, he said, "Sounds good. I'm kind of slowly doing things. To be honest, I'm kind of sore."
She replied, "I could have helped you this morning." And I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Like, he was there. I mean, she was there, so it doesn't make sense that he wouldn't let her help. I mean, we know why he didn't let her help, but
Right.
so he responds, "Yeah, I know. I'll be right back." Going to the dump. She says, "Did you load the car by yourself? You can barely walk. I should have at least helped you with that." He then tells her, "Never mind, the dump's closed." And then she remembers, yeah, it's a holiday weekend. She later texts almost an hour later and says, "Hey, did you pass out?" She sends a few more texts that he doesn't respond to. He didn't tell her he was going anywhere else, but he went to Fleet Farm to get the tarp, and we know he used that. I think that's what ended up at her mom's house, I think, right?
Yeah, in that trash can.
Yep. The picture is shown of him in the store. She was worried about him, so she pulled his location up on Snapchat. Again, murderers and people who break the law.
Leave
You
your
can
phone
be
at home.
traced. Yeah. Uh, she pulled his location up on Snapchat, and at 8:58, he was by the Wisconsin River. She screenshot that because she was curious why he was there. She knew the location because she had been there with Chandler. They park their car and they go swim there. She had been there 2 to 3 times with him. When she saw that location, she asked him what he was doing, and he said he was going to pick up CBD for his pain and was passing by there and stopped. CBD getting the blame.
I know, right?
She called him, and he didn't. He said he didn't want to tell her because he was picking up the CBD oil because he thought that she would be disappointed in him.
Well, people gonna be disappointed in me. I love some CBD.
My mom takes it
It's awesome. It
for
helps me
arthritis.
sleep.
Yeah. Um, so the text he didn't respond to correlates to the times he was by the Wisconsin River. So obviously he was doing something there. The last time they were at the river was earlier that summer with his video game buddy Andrew Smith, who went by Smith. I think he testified, didn't he?
I
What?
don't. He has not testified yet
Okay.
that I know of. No, he's coming
I
up though.
read
I think
something.
tomorrow.
I don't know.
Tomorrow it should be.
Yep. The rest of the day on the 3rd, she went to watch fireworks with her brother. Chandler stopped by to eat and they watched some TV, then he left. He was acting exhausted that day. He said his plans were to take care of the dogs because of the fireworks and do more chores.
Sorry, something just randomly started playing on my computer, and I
Uh-oh.
had to exit out. Um, okay, I'm trying to find out where you were. I was too busy. Okay, July 4th.
Yeah.
So the plan was for her to grab breakfast with her brother's friend, and for Chandler to come over and go to the farm. And that night they would end up back at Chandler's. She said when they got there, they kind of walked around the farm a bit, but not too far. And she said they talked about how far back that property goes. And she points out to people regularly where that property line ends when they have guests over. This is Kat talking. But Chandler had been there before. So she said that night they walked to the chicken coop, they ate and did a walk to the pool and went swimming, and Chandler got in. She left and they took her brother's friend to his house. He apparently had some kind of a Tinder date. So Kat spent the night at Chandler's that night. On the way there, she stopped to get clothes that were in the wash at her mom's house and took them to Chandler's to dry. And that laundry room was upstairs level with the bedrooms. Also, she said that night they went to Dan's house, which is the coworker we've already heard from, who was
Mm-hmm.
very close with both Bart and Krista and was very worried and consistently in contact. So the prosecutor asks if Chandler burned himself anytime that weekend, and she said he told her he burned his hand on the grill while making a hamburger. Now, in the testimony that we'll get in for day 4, which was Friday, You can see they ask him about some burns on his arm. You don't see it too good, but he says that he burned it with bottle rockets, that the sparks came up. However, when they're cuffing him, you do see it's kind of like lines on his arm. They look like scratches to me, but they say they're burns. But that's now he's asked 2 or 3 people, did he get burned doing the fireworks? They asked Dan. Both of them said no. So he told her the grill, he told the officers fireworks.
Mm.
That night they slept in Chandler's bed in his room because the little couch that they had made was bothering her back. And she said it was a really restless night because the dogs were freaked out by the fireworks and one of the dogs fell down the stairs, apparently. She said that when the dog fell, Chandler laid down with the dog and was petting her. So the next day she had to go to work and she left early and she texted Chandler some frustrations about her job. So at 11:30 a.m., Chandler texts her, don't piss them off until we know for sure we are moving. And she said, okay. Are you lost?
No, I see. You're still on your page.
Oh, okay. Well, it switched on mine. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. That's what I was like, what?
Okay. She texted him that Greyhounds aren't too expensive for a trip to Titusville. And she texted him this since he said he couldn't fly. And she was just looking at alternative ways to get to Florida for him. And he says, nope, $870 for a straight shot to Orlando. And she responds, what? And he says, Uber is $240 to Titusville. She said she was looking at the Greyhound website. And Chandler says, so like $1,000 to get there with not much of my stuff. And then he said, where am I looking? In other words, like he's way off. She's not.
Yeah, she says, you're very off. And he responds, oh, okay. They show the screenshot she sent to Chandler showing a total of $224 for the bus fare. She took a screenshot of the clinic Chandler was supposed to be going to that day for a doctor's appointment. She had hoped to take off work and get him there, but she didn't. In the afternoon at 1:30, she texts Chandler to tell him when he gets to his appointment. Chandler says, yes, dear. She tells him it will all be okay and she loves him. Chandler replies, either way, you and me are going to be happy. At 2:01, he texts her, made it a bit ago and checked in. Then texts, be right back. She says, you got this. Who texts be right back?
I don't know.
If I'm talking to somebody and I'm going to do something, I don't say be right back.
Yeah, I'll say, hey, I'll text you back in 10. Which
Yeah,
usually means
or
I'll
text
never
you
text
later.
you back. I'm terrible at it now.
Then she texts, am I picking you up? I'm off at 5. And he says, just need you to know I have horrible reception. And that message was sent twice to her. She texts, do they not have Wi-Fi? We can snap if that's easier. Chandler says no connection even to load Snapchat and no Wi-Fi, but I can still get your iMessages. She says, weird they all have it, but maybe it's your carrier. He responds, I'll try and get it on. And she says you can turn off location on Snapchat. At 3:25, Chandler texts her, hi, hun, heading home. They took an x-ray and a CT scan. Nothing bad on the x-ray. She responded, Florida, let me see your face. Chandler responds, CT scan. She asked what was on it, and he said they haven't determined anything, but with my legs like they were and all, I gotta wait to hear what they determined. She says, soreness and stiffness is normal after whiplash and accident, especially with how much your family wouldn't let you move around your house. She said that because he was staying in the basement since it was darker, and Krista didn't want Chandler doing much because she was worried about him hurting himself.
Yeah, because all the friends said that Krista doted over her boys. So when Mitchell got sick, it was all eyes and attention on him. And then, boop, Chandler a week later is falling down the stairs. By the way, my shirt is just the lyrics to Me and Bobby McGee. Oh. So Chandler responds, no need to be worried. I just got to wait. And he asked to FaceTime when she gets off work. So she asks, so we're not worried? And he says, I am. Then she asks, they're sure you're fine. What? Snap me back, sir. Are you okay? And he says, sorry. He texts her at 4:22 p.m. and says, I think so. I'm calling Cress. I need some time up in the water. And she says, okay. So she talked to him when he was on his way, and they talked about using the pool. And he asked Kat if Cress was home and if she could get a hold of her. She actually saw him later that evening at her mom's, and he said he had told her then he had lost the job at SpaceX. He said they found a lot of errors in his work after his accident. And she said he had told her he already started working there remotely. So with her, it was a different variation of the SpaceX job. He was already working. So he talked about his doctor's appointment and said he would have lifelong leg numbness. And she said his demeanor was sad and kind of down. So into Tuesday on July 6th, Chandler said Bart and Krista weren't home and they were probably just still at the cabin. She texts Chandler and asks if they're home, and he responds no. So she says to text Mitchell, his brother, and see if he's happened to have heard from them. So when asked why she said to text Mitchell, she said it's unusual for Krista not to text because she's constantly in contact. Very frequently, she would ask about their plans, tell what she was doing, send pictures of the dogs. And she said it would be really unusual for Krista to be gone for a few days and not be in touch. So even when they were at the cabin, they would frequently text pictures of the lake and the cabin and things around there. So Kat at this point is starting to get concerned.
She worked that day. That evening, he came to her mom's for their weekly Buffalo Wild Wings thing and watched Legally Blonde. Great movie. Wednesday the 7th, they show text between her and Chandler. She was working. She texts him and asks, where's he going? He texts at 10:16 a.m. and says, farm, but no one is here, so leaving. She responds, you can still swim if you need to. Chandler says, I feel weird, and she asks why. He says, sorry, I'm stressed, hon, and she says it's okay, you can swim if you need to. She texts her mom about him being there at the farm. The prosecutor asked Kat if she would have taken the Target bags to the farm, and she said she would not. They show her photos of the garbage cans and the Target bag. They show the Target bag with her first initial, last name, and date of July 1st for the pickup.
Now the Target bag, I didn't put this in here, but it was full of bloody rags.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Still the 7th at 11:22 a.m. Chandler texts, going to police. Can I have $5 for a soda and chips? She says, I don't have $5. Before this, she had told him he should make a missing persons report. Again, he's asking her for money. July 8th, she was at work. She was very emotional that day. She was upset about Bart and Krista. After 30 to 45 minutes, she told her boss she couldn't stay because she was so worried. She asked to leave so she could go be with Chandler. She stopped to get groceries at her mom's so she could cook for him while they waited. When she pulled up, Chandler was outside talking to reporters. Mitchell and his fiance showed up, and he walked around the house trying to see if there was anything Chandler missed regarding his parents, and Chandler followed him around the house. That's just weird to know your brother killed your... I mean, he didn't know at the time, but that your brother killed your parents and you're just walking around like...
Yeah, and this is right before I believe Mitchell and his fiance went to the cabin to meet police up there, but they called them off and said that they had been sent back. And now we know because they started finding the remains.
Yeah. So later that day, police asked Kat and Chandler to go to the police station, and they drove them in different cars. In the interview room, they asked her questions and were there for a couple of hours. She was emotional during the interview. She cried and vomited. They asked to look at her phone, and she let them have it. She just wanted them to be found.
At this point, she was sobbing on the stand. It was very clear to me that she literally, I mean, and the prosecutor said in his openings, she is an unknowing accomplice. She had no clue.
Yeah. Yeah. So she didn't think Chandler had done anything wrong at that point. They contacted her again to talk several times.
Yep. And then the prosecutor asks if she was with Chandler the most from July 1st to the 8th, and she said yes. So on cross-exam, the defense says they've seen a lot of screenshots, and that's normal for her to take screenshots, and she said yes. The defense asks if she was aware there was no air conditioning in the home, and she said she was aware. The defense attorney asked if it was unusual for them to have their windows open since it was hot out, and Kat said it was not unusual. So that was one thing I think the defense, you know, neighbors had said the windows are up. It's July. It makes no sense, but they were able to at least get out of her. This was something they did. She also brought up the blankets that were on the furniture, the defense attorney did, and Kat said it was common because of the dogs. So they, you know, there's only little bitty things that they're able to poke holes in. You see what I'm saying? There's just
Yeah.
nothing. So the defense attorney said the family liked cold beverages, and they bring up when she got the ice out of the freezer to make the root beer floats, saying it's not unusual for them to have bags of ice in the freezer. And they did have a small ice maker, but she kind of described it as one that just makes enough for maybe 1 or 2 glasses of ice. She also confirms that one of the dogs was very anxious and the fireworks made it worse. The dog's name was Rizzo, which I love because I love Grease.
Hmm.
The defense says that Chandler was a nerdy guy who loved Star Wars, and Kat said yes. They actually both loved Star Wars and he loved the action collection figure she had. She named her dog Chewbacca just a few weeks after meeting Chandler. So on redirect, the prosecution asks about the size of the ice machine, and she made some hand motions showing how it was compact. It was like a foot by a foot. And he asks if she knew of any reason why Chandler would need 20 pounds of ice on top of what was already at the house, and she said no. And then the prosecutor reminds Kat that she also brought ice too. So the last witness for this day was who?
Detective Blank, and he is Dane County Sheriff's Office. He assisted with digital forensics, interview witnesses, and compiling information. And we know that digital forensics is huge with everything that was going on. We've seen that in all the cases we've worked.
Yep.
Daybell, Vallow, all that stuff.
Yeah.
He helped interview Kat and says she was cooperative. He used software to download contents of electronics. He met with Mitchell to get a DNA sample. He got a buccal swab. I've never heard of this, but a buccal swab is taken from the mouth to get DNA. I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cheek
It's spelled
swab.
like Buccal. Of course, we would have butchered that. I spelt it on here like it sounds, Fruit Loop, for us.
Oh, I got you. I never heard of that.
Yeah.
What? Okay. So they have the person swish water to get rid of any residual stuff from the mouth, then swab for the mouth for 30 seconds on each side of the cheeks to get DNA. Dude, it's like a COVID test, except it's up your nose. It dries for 24 hours before packaging and sealing, then transported for testing. Kat gave this detective the screenshot of Chandler's location at the Wisconsin River. And surprisingly, there was no cross.
There was no cross. So that finishes up those 2 days that we had to split in half. We still need to do day 4. It's not as long, but we will try to get that in for you either later tonight, maybe at some point tomorrow. I'll be having to play catch up tomorrow. I've got a lot of stuff to do, so I'm going to have to watch that testimony a little later in the day. So at least with this, we're 1 day behind.
Yep.
But this next one won't take long, and then we'll have you all caught up. So we're going to be doing this all week, planning to start actually covering trials like this on a really regular basis because it's interesting. It's happening in real time. And when these other cases get really quiet, it's going to be better that we have something that we can all get interested in together at the beginning and follow it through. So that's kind of what we've been throwing around is in addition to what we normally do, we're going to start doing some live trials too. So that's all we have. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Sunday. We will see you soon.